Good morning and welcome to our October 2017 BLOX Total CMS customer webinar. Today, Jon Winters, the product architect for BLOX Total CMS, will show off the latest features and enhancements to our appliance-based front-end system. I'm Aaron Gillette, Marketing Director for TownNews.com. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and a Q&A will follow. At any point you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll hold off on answering them until the end of the presentation. Jon's got a ton of exciting stuff to share, so I'm not going to belabor the intro. Take it away, Jon.
Thank you very much. So indeed, what we're talking about today is primarily the appliance update, the version 2.17.0, which is currently in beta but hopes to be released just next week. So we're getting this out just before the release is made available. And we're going to talk about things in that release. We're going to talk about forthcoming releases and a few other things in between. So again, this is our agenda. Starting with the software packages. So here's just kind of a list of the big pieces that are in this update. We're going to skip the slide and go right on into them. First thing that we're getting is a current version of BLOX CMS, relatively current for the appliance at least. This includes the brand new article designer tool, sometimes called the storytelling tools. And this is an example of that, how we can drag and drop literally anything, including related content, directly into the body of the articles, and then display a bunch of properties with those. And we're going to take a look at some of that here in just a second. There was a recent webinar on the storytelling tools, and the link in the outline in the release notes. I'll make sure that that link to that previous webinar is in there. But it's kind of neat stuff that you can do all kinds of image choices and alignment choices and sizes. So what we're going to do is jump over to a different browser window here. I'm actually in a hosted environment at the moment. We'll see why I'm there, but the functionality is the same. And I believe I had set up something here. Yeah. So this is an article asset. And to show you how the drag and drop and the article designer tools function, I'm going to go to related content, just drag and drop into here. That functionality has existed for a long time, and that image is going to appear somewhere in line. What's new is the double click on here, where we can say, well, I want this to be centered, or I want this to be right aligned. I can say I want this to be a full width or a half width. And then there's all kinds of presentations options for that. I'm going to go make this one a parallax image, and I'm going to click apply. I happen to be in the appliance environment, excuse me, the hosted environment, and the reason is that I wanted to be able to show you immediately what that actually looks like. So I'm going to go to view and look at a preview of it. There's not going to be any ads on here in this preview, but there is an example of a parallax image. This one is a half width and over to the left. There's a half width over to the right. That one that I dropped in a little bit later is coming up that I dropped in there. And the parallax is this thing that as you scroll, it kind of shows you the image and reveals the text then afterwards. So we'll jump back to our presentation here. So that's the article designer, and all those tools exist inside the appliance version as well, but since they are based on the view online, I wanted to demonstrate that in the hosted environment. The other thing that's really nice, or another thing that's really nice about the BLOX update included in Appliance 2.17 is that we have access to batch upload everywhere. So let me go to an appliance view out here. There we go. And let's assume that I have some kind of an article asset and I want to add some children. And there is batch upload. And so I can add files. And I thought out on my desktop out here, I had a folder of various images. And so they're all uploading, and then we'll all become children. And there they are, those last four, of that article asset. So if you've got a bunch of images, this is just so much nicer. And this ability to batch upload here is really everywhere in the system. One of the nicest places for it to be is if you're creating a new collection, then when you go to children and add, there is the beloved batch upload. So I can again do that same kind of process. I just have this folder out here with these 4 images, and a very quick way to go out and add images to a collection asset. So I'm going to jump back to the presentation. The semantic analysis wizard, this is a minor thing, but it may throw people for a loop. It's moved. It used to be in the editing window, and now they really put it where it belongs, which is with the keywords. On the appliance, you have to actually set this up. In the hosted environment, it's live and it's there automatically. This actually happens to be some screen dumps from the hosted environment, but it works identically. We also have more support for flags with BLOX Go. There's a huge long list of flags now available. There are quite a few appliance-based sites that port the appliance through their firewall and then allow the reporters out in the field to log into the appliance using BLOX Go on a mobile device and file stories. The whole mobile Go or BLOX Go configuration is really neat. It works well. We're adding a bunch of new features in the coming year to BLOX Go, and the only thing you need to do for the appliance-based sites is just simply port the appliance to the firewall, and we'll talk more about that after a bit. Also new in Appliance 217 is the updated syndication tool. Over on the right is a sample of a new feed called CNN Wire. And this is different from the CNN RSS feed. It's got more stuff in it. It also has a lot of video links to it. And it's a subscription service, kind of like what Associated Press uses, and we now support that. For some period of time, RSS feeds that you can access via the syndication tool have supported geocoordinates. We now import those. If there is a preview image for a RSS or Atom feed, we'll now show those. For example, over here to the right is some previews on CNN Wire. Also, there are start and delete times now supported. And then a change that you may notice if you're using this syndication tool is frequently what would happen is that as you brought in assets from the syndication tool, you would see the user interface somewhat lock up as it was importing those. And now more of those feeds will instead be downloaded in the background. You'll see a little spinning wheel on the particular asset that you've imported, and then once it's available, it'll switch back to the standard little view of a newspaper. So a little change there. As far as the Associated Press feeds that you access via the syndication tool, there's some better keyword support. So as you're importing an asset and you go to keywords, all of the Associated Press provided keywords would show up in gray. You can click add and add your own if you wanted, or you can select one and click this keep button, and then that would turn it into a non-gray version. So thus, when you imported and looked at the asset, then the keywords that you chose to keep would be there. Otherwise, if they remain gray, then it doesn't import the AP keywords. It just depends on whether you want to use APs or not. You can select the whole list of them and do the keep icon all at once. We also have a change for the way underscores are treated in assets from AP. Now, underscores weren't used a lot, but lottery feeds, some agate used them as well. And what AP has done for years is indicate that an underscore was supposed to be converted to an M dash. And we in our web feed manager still let those be underscores and require the rule set to convert them to M dashes. They now come in as M dashes. One of the things that does, however, is that the M dash comes in encoded, so it looks like the standard HTML encoding of an M dash, and some of the hyperlinks use a target of underscore blank, which now then reads m dash blank. And so what you'll need to do with Appliance 2.17, if you're using the syndication tool, is you'll need to make a minor rule set edit. For those of you who don't touch the rule sets, I am sorry, but this is really quick for the people that are on here. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that change, translate rule sets. There's almost always a rule set called hyperlinks. If you don't have a listing that says target, you might want one of those as well, because AP now sends some stuff through with the target as being the first part of the hyperlink. There's a couple ways that we can handle these M dashes. One is we could create a rule here that is just target equals and then leave the rest off. I'm going to actually go in and convert it to the way the M dash is by duplicating this and make a new note. And then replace this with how that M dash is actually encoded, which is an HTML encoding. Help if I spelled right. And then now those web links would be treated correctly. So it's just simply replacing a copy of this target out here that has the underscore with the M dash. Or like I said, if you wanted to, this change here would also work. That would be all you'd really need to do, and you'd handle both cases of them. Okay, so I've changed that rule set, and we'll go back to our presentation. We also have some neat things going on, again, not with the web feed manager, but with the Associated Press channel in the syndication tool. I used to complain all the time the fact that the print headline and the print subheadline were sometimes identical. And indeed, with the web feed manager, they are still sometimes identical. We've changed it for the syndication tool. If for some reason AP sent the subheadline identical to the headline, we will no longer import it, so the subheadline will be empty. But otherwise, if we find a subheadline that is unique, then we'll use the unique subheadline and we will no longer replicate the headlines. You can also, with the syndication tool, you can pre-assign a default workflow. So in the Associated Press channel, you can go out here and you can assign a workflow from this menu in that channel. We're going to talk about other benefits of using the syndication tool compared to the legacy AP web feeds. If you're a site that has been installed in the past maybe year and a half, you don't have the legacy feeds, so this is not an issue, and you're used to using the syndication tool. And because you're used to using the syndication tool, you get some nice benefits, such as an automatic download of all high-res images that you need. So you don't need to go back into the browser and download the high-res image. Those come automatically when you're using the syndication tool. There are some really neat things going on with the write-throughs, and we'll look at that here in a minute. And you can do all kinds of settings as each asset is in the flag sections workflow. Using the syndication tool helps the overall system efficiency, so it's less likely to bog down. And coming in the future, if you wanted to use the web feed manager, you're going to have a dedicated workstation to feed BLOX Total CMS, because we are removing the legacy feeds, and everybody will need to use syndication tool or their own system. So assets that have been imported from the syndication tool, they show with this kind of icon out here. But assets with a little number after it indicates one that has been updated. So this would be a write through, something containing, for example, the latest or other updates to the asset. And so if I had previously imported this onto an InDesign page, if I wanted the update in InDesign to happen, I would go back to this particular asset and, and click Add to Site, still in the syndication tool. And then what will happen is that clears the content that's out here for that article has now been updated. InDesign will then throw the yellow alert flag indicating that the content has been updated, and then you reflow it. And this is a whole lot better than trying to copy and paste that text into the existing version. So again, that process, since I really didn't demonstrate that well, this is one that's updated. I go and I add it to site. And then had I placed that on a page, I go back to Adobe InDesign and just reflow. Sorry for the confusion about that. Going to move on. Also a part of Appliance 217 is Page Tracker now supports the hosted environment. Throughout our demonstration, I have been jumping back and forth to hosted environments. So here, for example, is a hosted site. Notice the blue interface, but yet I still have all of the print controls. If I was in an editorial asset, there we go. Wait for that to come open. So I have the print tab with my slug, the way that we would expect to see that in an appliance-based site. I also have out here the page tracker and the assignments tool, which is uniquely BLOX Total CMS. Now this won't be there unless you assign a contract to get that there, and then there's a setup fee involved, but it is something that's available to you. You can indeed publish from the hosted environment. There'll be some more notes coming about that as well. But this is available in the appliance. We get the same version that has been out on the hosted environment. And at that 1.33, that's when we started hosting Page Tracker. So you basically need Page Tracker. You need to use live e-editions as well, and need to sign a new contract. And then you can publish off of the hosted environment. There's some reasons why you may want to do that. There's some reasons why you would not. We'd be glad to talk to you about that later. Also, as part of Page Tracker in the appliance environment is we get some purging options. So this actually came out several versions ago on the appliance, and then there was an issue with it, the initial purge being rather slow. So we turned it off and now have changed the way that the purge happens. But if you are working with Page Tracker, you can delete Page Tracker pages. This is not the InDesign pages, that's separate. This is Page Tracker pages, or the assignments. You can control how long you want to keep either of those, and they will purge later. Okay. I'll leave this for you to look at on the release notes. There's a bunch of other little things that have changed in the appliance. Some very specific things that are important with the appliance that's changed, however. If for some reason during an appliance update, the person doing that frequently has to turn off replication during the update process, it's typically a required part. Sometimes people forget to turn replication back on, and so we now alert people when there's a problem with replication. We've alerted, but that didn't work if replication wasn't turned on. We now send alerts when replication is disabled. Also, some sites never got the email alerts, and that's because they had never entered the information. So there's a different kind of alert system on the appliance that makes sure that we get an email address that works there. And then keeping current, we've upgraded the MySQL, which is used not as the main database for BLOX Total CMS, but some of the smaller databases that are there. Now we're going to talk about automatic client updates. BLOX Total CMS is now over 7 years old, closer to 7.5. And in the very early days, we used to FTP client updates out to the appliances. When we got more than about 10 appliances, that became time prohibitive. And since that time, we then attached updates to CRM tickets, or we would allow people to download them from an FTP site. The problem with that is that many of our sites just don't update in a reasonable time. Nobody bothers to look to see if there's an update. I'll show you where you can find those in just a minute. And it requires, I don't know, about 5 minutes worth of work, and people just don't want to spend that 5 minutes. The advantage of that legacy method, however, is that if the site wants a new feature or they want a bug fix now, it's really quick. We can get an update out very quick. And so that's the advantage of our old method. But we now have a new method that I'm going to show you. There is a folder that is installed by default on the appliances. It's actually out there before 2.17. It just has a very old version of the client. And it's set up a little differently than the 2.17 version. And this folder then has the approved client release for a particular appliance OS. And rather than downloading the software and then updating some folders, which like I said takes about 5 minutes, you would instead create the shortcut or alias to the plugin directly from that appliance share. The really good thing about this is that it's automatic. The appliance update is a fairly easy automated process, and then the client update would just work. The disadvantage of using this automated update is that you're going to find that you're going to have to wait for the updates. Currently, we get somewhere between 3 and 6 updates a year, as opposed to the clients themselves, which are updated anytime from a couple times a week to at the minimum once every 2 weeks. So you can get much quicker updates if you use the legacy method, but you'll actually get the updates if you use this new method. It's included on the appliance OS. It's always there. It's always going to be pointing to the fully QA tested version that goes along with the appliance update. Now, what I consider to be potentially the most important part of today's webinar, talking about the roadmap for the future releases, as well as a little bit of back history on the current releases of 2017. So these first 5 things that are listed there is the releases of 2017. We're talking today about this 2.17.0. And if you look at that, that's 5 releases for the course of the year. We would like to release more often than that. The problem is that we can't seem to get enough clients signed up to do initial testing of the appliances for us. We test it in-house sometimes for several weeks, and then we release a beta release. All the people on the typically IT staff get those notices of those beta releases, and we need to have at least 3 live sites. We almost always have our sites that are going live on the absolute latest appliance version, but we need 3 live sites for a solid week before we'll do a general release. And if we look here, for example, at the delay between 2.16 and 2.16.1, this was pretty much all because we didn't get beta customers quick enough. And so we're going to talk more about getting beta customers here in just a moment. So it's just kind of a review of what's going on here with these. We're going to talk about 2.16. 2.16 is an important release. It switched the mechanism that we handle all future updates. Thankfully, we've only got, I think, a total of like 4 sites that are not on this 2.16. If you're not on 2.16 or above, you need to get there by the end of the year or you'll lose your ability to update. And we've been contacting those particular sites aggressively trying to get them to update. And this number is getting down now just to 3%. 2.16.1 was a systems release. One of the things that we got there is the ability to use your own VM as a host for an appliance. And if you have a large VM infrastructure moving to, just because you probably have other kinds of controls for the way those VMs are handled. A lot of sites, 88 appliances are already on that version. It was released 2 months ago. We're talking today about this OS 2.17.0. That gets you the batch update, gets you the article designer. And then here's the issue. The beta was released a month ago, almost, on September 25th. And just this morning, we had our first site install the beta. And because of that delays everything else for the rest of the year. And there's some really good stuff coming. So we're going to talk about that. Appliance 2.17.1 is a systems only release. It's a single issue update. And the whole thing here is to update the communication for SMB, also known as Samba. And this should be a substantial performance update for macOS and Windows 10 users. It's also going to be the first appliance update that's going to have a very easy downgrade path. Pretty much until that point, every time that you update, there's really no turning back. And so finally with this next one, 2.17.1, should get some real important important performance updates and increases in performance, and yet there's still going to be an easy way to downgrade, or there will finally be an easy way to downgrade. This says here, contact customer support and sign up for beta testing. You can also, if you know one of the BLOX Total CMS teams, you can email them. We'll be glad to help you. I have actually a ticket set up with all the people who would like to do that testing for us. We've been told that unlike our normal release schedule, this one's going to be a little longer unless we have a lot of beta testers. And we want a lot of beta testers because the next release, this one, Appliance 218, I've got it listed as early 2018. It could conceivably happen at the beginning of December or maybe even late November, providing that we get some beta testers on the 2017. This one has what we've been looking for a long time. Number one, in the browser, you will now have what we call a recovery save, an automatic recovery save, so that if you crash your computer while you're using the browser interface, if you close the browser tab, without saving the assets, there will be a copy of the asset saved. This is a long road coming, but we have it, and it works great. It is practically foolproof. In fact, I don't know of anybody who's been able to break that concept yet. It works great. The other thing that we get in this version, I'll show you here. And let me jump to one of these other windows. Not that one. That one. So I'm in a browser interface. I happen to be inside of a hosted site because Hosted already has this version of BLOX CMS, and we don't get it on the appliance until 18. We don't get to 18 until we get to 17.1, and we need beta testers for that. Look at my status column here. Got a couple new icons. This one here, this indicates that asset has been placed on the page. People have been wanting this since the beginning, some indication in the browser that the article has been placed on the page. There's also, although I do not see it with this particular set of assets, there's an in-copy icon that will show up. So for those sites that are using Adobe in-copy assignments, you'll be able to know in the browser that there's an in-copy assignment. This is just a wonderful thing. Finally, another icon that shows up here, this kind of green arrow, this indicates that this has been used on the page. Why doesn't it have this? Because it was used as a merged article. So when you're using briefs, we now know which briefs have been placed on a page. Again, this is a wonderful thing. It's part of 218, and to get 218, we had to get 217.1, and to get 217.1, we need beta testers. Okay. We also get page tracker. Oops, didn't mean to go there. We also get page tracker with page deadlines. We'll be able to track which pages are running late. You'll be able to view that in page tracker. It's really kind of a neat process. We also get workflows when using syndication importers. This is also when the AP web feed agents disappear. You will no longer be able to use the legacy AP web feed running on the appliance. You have basically just two options. You can either install your own computer for every web feed that you need. Instead of using the appliance for one web feed, you use one computer for one web feed. Or you can switch to the syndication tool. And the syndication tool is real easy to set up. I will show that. And then we also need to switch to HTTPS. So let me just go in and show real quick. There are documents on help.blox.cms, help.bloxcms.com, sorry, that show how to add the syndication channels, but we made this so easy. There's no reason not to do this. Editorial, syndication. Again, you would have to have permissions to do this. Channels new, I want an AP channel, click continue. I would enter a name for this, whatever name you want. You need your AP username, your AP password, and you pick the workflow that you want to assign to it. Oops, I didn't want that one, I wanted this one. You click save and you would immediately start seeing AP content. It's really easy to create an AP channel. If you want help, we'll be glad to help you with it because you have to be off of the AP web feed manager before going to Appliance 218 because we're going to take it off there anyway. So you might as well switch to AP early. Okay. So what do we need to do here? You need to stay current. One of the ways that you can help yourself stay current, if you're using the appliance, let's go to here. The main splash screen for the appliance has, right in these two gray areas, the appliance updates release notes and the client update release notes. And so if you want to find out what's new about it, the client, click, and there's the release notes. And you can see that I released a client update just yesterday with some bug fixes. And this has been there for many, many appliance versions. You can always go in here and check either one of these to see what's the newest release. And we typically are running client releases, several versions in front of what's included with the, client. We tend to run the client releases, several versions in front of what's included with the appliance update. So for example, the appliance update includes 2.18, and that's basically the appliance update includes client 5.18, and that is basically just this final version of 5.17 with some bugs fixed. There's not a separate release note for it. Okay, so back to presentation. So watch those release notes there. You can sign up for beta releases on the appliance update. To sign up for betas. Upgrade to the syndication tool. I already showed you how to add your AP account. We're doing some staff training for the syndication tool. There'll be videos that you can watch. You'll need to convert to it, and then you'll need to disable the AP web feed agent. It's not a difficult process. Like I said, anybody who's been installed in the past year and a half has been using the syndication tool anyway. It's all the legacy sites that need to change. Also, if you are currently porting your appliance through your firewall, you probably set that up a long time ago, and you are porting HTTP through the firewall, and that will disappear with appliance 2.18, and so you'll need to instead port HTTPS. So instead of using port 80, it'll be port 443, and you'll need to change your firewall to support that. And then anybody who's outside your firewall can access your appliance if you're doing that. Some sites don't do that, some sites do. But you'll need to make that change prior to 2.18. You can do that today. You do not need 2.18 to do it. You needed, I think, 2.14. That's been out for a long, long time. So there is some more information about the full-time HTTPS. And then we are doing a webinar in November, on the client changes. Today was just on the appliance. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with the appliance update, and we're going to do a client webinar in just about another month. Time to open it up for questions. Aaron will join the line, and he'll read the questions.
Yeah, we have quite a few questions. Now's a good time to type them into the question box if you do have them. I'll jump in here. Just to clarify, is it not possible within TCMS to preview article design or display prior to sending up to hosted?
So the answer is not on appliance, and the reason is that hosted is where the web templates are. And so if you truly want to preview the article, you need to have access to the web templates, which means the article needs to be on hosted, which means you either need to syndicate it to hosted and look there, and there's a nice built-in function inside of the appliance version to do that, or you need to actually be working off of a hosted environment.
Okay. Will the CNN Wire channel, with the CNN Wire channel, will we be able to pull in videos via syndication?
Yeah, from what I understand, I grabbed one the other day. The little preview document that I had there was not a video, but yes. That's my understanding is one of the main differences between it and the RSS feed. But that is a subscription service, so you need to contact CNN and subscribe to it.
Okay. Will you have an example of the rule set change somewhere that customers can get to?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's actually already out there in that release note. I think here on the 2.17 release notes that the rule set change is out here. Let me go check. Right there.
Great. How many changes do we need to make to rule sets to go to the syndication tools? This is the reason we didn't change before.
Yeah, it turns out none. The only thing that has changed that we have noticed is that some of the web links start off with this target. which we talked about before. That's really the only thing that we have noticed between syndication and the legacy web feeds. What ended up happening is that we modified the core part of the client to try and correct any differences between what was coming from the web feeds and what we were getting from the syndication tool. So there were some changes early on, but there aren't any more. And it doesn't matter upon when you installed in terms of your rule sets. We did all these changes in the client itself.
A question about the automatic upgrading versus manual upgrading of the client. Is there no override setting to go to manual if we want a more recent client version for bug fixes, etc.?
Yeah, unfortunately, it tends to be a one or the other. The only other thing that I could suggest doing is allow your machines to have an alias or a shortcut to an alias or shortcut in TCMS data, and then update that TCMS data alias or shortcut to either point to the appliances version or to a local version.
If we decide not to use the automatic updates, we would just need to copy the version from the active version folder into the TCMS_data folder, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of questions about the beta process. Typically, basically, how safe is it to go to automatic upgrades and use the beta? Is this mostly for larger customers, or can anyone do it? Is it a solid program?
Anybody can do it. The automatic upgrades is exceptionally safe because, like what we do with the appliance CMS, if you're a hosted client and there is a change to BLOX CMS for hosted, you get those changes all the time. They've been updating, once a week there's an update. And then we combine several weeks of those, sometimes several months if we don't have beta clients on the appliance side. And so the software that we're installing with the appliance update is code that's been used for a long time. The same is true with the client. Now, the question had to deal with the safeness of it. Like I said, the client update part of it is very, very safe.
If you're an IT person and you're trying to convince, as you as John would like to get people to opt into this to help move the process forward. If you're an IT person, what are some things that you could say to help convince your newsroom that this is a good idea? Obviously, they get new features faster.
Primarily, that's it. You get new features faster, and everybody gets new features faster. It's kind of like a help the world. The more times that we get beta users for the appliance updates, then the quicker the whole process works for everybody. So maybe you want to install beta 2.17.1, but you don't want to install beta 2.18, or vice versa. Okay, fine. It's just that we would like people to be more involved in that process because it does help everybody. That's the main thing. Yes.
Someone's wondering if you can talk a little bit about what being a beta tester entails.
What it entails is installing the update before it's the appliance update before it is in generally released, and it just means you get the new features sooner.
Is the BLOX Total CMS team looking at any reporting functions where a user can tell how many stories are being placed and how many total inches are being?
Yes, I am looking at that particular process. I don't have an ETA for it. I don't even have a development ticket for it, but it's part of what I'm planning for something that's generically called distributed production. And we'd be able to keep track of that kind of stuff.
Does the auto recovery feature recover drafts that haven't been saved yet?
Yes! It's awesome.
It is. It works really well. I've experienced it myself. So.
Yes. Yep. It's awesome.
And what would be the benefit of having page tracker in the hosted ad?
Well, if you're building pages in the hosted app, that's the benefit of having Page Tracker there. So if you are using the hosted version of BLOX Total CMS, and that means that you could, in theory, build pages from anywhere that you have access to a local file server. So you could do some aspect of distributed production that way. There's some limitations with that. But if you had editors or publishers who wanted to watch the page production or to somehow approve pages from a remote location like their home office, they would be able to do that because you wouldn't have to port the appliance through the firewall. Instead, it would just be out on the internet, which is the way the hosted environments are. So that's one of the main benefits there, is that you can get access to this any place you have an internet connection. Without building pages off of the appliance, there's no benefit to having Page Tracker on the hosted environment. Without building pages on the hosted environment. I think I said that wrong.
Excellent. That is all we have for questions right now. If you would like to advance to the last slide, I can go through our wrap-up here. Thank you very much to everyone who joined the webinar, and thanks, John. That was a great overview of the new features of BLOX Total CMS, the BLOX Total CMS appliance. There are many ways to stay connected with us. Our documentation is available at help.bloxcms.com, and for support, you can call 800-293-9576 or visit support.townnews.com. A partner community is a great way to swap ideas with other Town News customers, and that's available at community.townnews.com. And you can follow our system service status at townnews.status.io. You can actually sign up for updates there. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You can also sign up for a variety of newsletters and email messages from us by visiting townnews.com, clicking the news link, and there's a sidebar there that says Stay Connected, and you can sign up for newsletters right there. Obviously, if you don't have any of the products or features that we've discussed on this webinar, please give us a call, contact your sales representative, and we can get you set up. But again, thank you, John, and thanks to everyone. This was a great webinar, and we will send out an email shortly on the November webinar that John mentioned. So watch out for that. The client webinar email will go out before too long. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Aaron.